Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. Today I'm speaking with Montana farmers Max Smith and Katie Madden of Winter Kist Farm. As their farm name suggests, Max and Katie focus on growing vegetable crops year-round, especially during the winter seasons. On 15 acres and at 3,500 feet in elevation, they use multiple high tunnels and cat tunnels to grow crops and sell them through a CSA, an online store, and to some area restaurants. They've had an interesting journey with marketing and production by focusing on winter and spring-only sales during some recent years, but they're bringing back their summer CSA this year to meet the increasing demand for local year-round veggies. With a crew of 5 full-time employees and following the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen and the holistic goal framework, Max and Katie are very intentional with their farm and business practices. Even in the face of challenges, they are flexible and mindful and offer an inspiring example of how to work together and build a farm as a team. Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. When you need proven varieties you can count on and detailed guidance from seeding to harvest, consider Johnny's your trusted growing partner. Our same-day shipping can help keep your planting schedules on track when the unexpected happens. We're here to help you grow good food. Turning to Johnny's means you can plant high-quality, trial-proven varieties with confidence and know that our expert staff is ready to help with first-hand knowledge, because we've grown them ourselves. This episode is also brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses. Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or vegetables for your family, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment for a harvest you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are strong, durable, and easy to assemble, offering the quality you need to grow productively year-round. The team of experts at Rimmel will be your trusted partners to ensure you get exceptional value from your greenhouse investment. Visit rimmel.com today. All right, enjoy the show. Okay, welcome to the Winter Growers Podcast. Today I have Katie and Max of Winter Kist Farm from Montana. Hello, guys. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
So you are my first guest from Montana, which I'm very excited about. You get the honorary Montana farmers for the show. So yay. And I'm excited to speak with you guys for, many reasons. But one, after my time farming in Colorado, I know a little bit with what you guys are dealing with winter farming out there. Sort of the Mountain West conditions can be very challenging, especially with very little moisture. And then what I found was really challenging were the extremes that you could get. You could be super, super cold one night, and then the sun would come out the next day and it would heat up really fast. And it just felt like there was less of the sort of moderated winter that we often will get back here on the East Coast. So I don't know if that's been your experience, but that was definitely mine. And how's your winter going so far? How's this? We're in January of 24, and how are things right now for you?
This winter has been quite mild. Up until a couple weeks ago, we had the coldest cold snap we've ever experienced. Like we've gotten down to negative 26 before, but this time it was negative 36. And the difference with this one is it was in the negatives during the day as well, and it didn't get sunny in the day, which is what we have experienced during prior cold snaps. So that was rough. But everything is still alive and fine in the tunnels. We don't heat our tunnels at all, so things did take a bit of a hit, but it's all right.
Yeah, no, definitely having those horrible cold snaps without getting the warming trend afterwards is brutal, both, just for your, own mental health, I think, but also being able to harvest and sell stuff. It's very difficult to do that if you don't have the warming trend. So
yeah. It's at times like this, we really feel thankful that we've shifted over to the winter CSA as our primary marketing tool, because there were our greens amount shifted from about 3 greens per week to 1, and then this week we didn't even give any at the very end of the delivery week. And you know, members they went through that same cold snap. They were incredibly forgiving. And
luckily we had a banner storage crop year for every other crop we grew. So that was really nice.
Lucky, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Your farm story is actually really interesting to me, and you'll definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I can tell about your farm story is in 2017 was when you first really dabbled with winter growing and doing a winter CSA. And then you made an announcement in August of 22 that you wanted to do just winter and spring only CSA sales. But then I just saw a week ago that you're now coming back to a summer CSA again. So I guess, you know, there's no one right way to farm, you know, whether it's winter, summer, year round. But what I'm curious about is how intentional has that journey been for you? Or is this really just been an experiment?
I think a little bit of both. We started out doing the winter CSA together in 2017 because there wasn't really anybody else doing winter growing in our area. And then we just kept growing that and had always joked about just doing winter growing. And then we had a pretty rough season in 2022. And so we were like, just started crunching the numbers and looking at it, and we're like, I think that we could try doing just winter growing. And then this past year was great. Loved it. Loved doing just the winter growing, but going back to the numbers and some other aspects or factors made putting the summer CSA back into play makes sense. So like financially, we are looking at building a new, very expensive building. So that those loan payments in the future, and then just experiencing what it was like doing just winter with our crew and having our crew be year round, and seeing what the difference was with that in reality and experiencing that. So what we found is that we needed one or two extra people in the spring and one or two extra people in the fall for all the planting and then for all the storage crop harvesting. And so in order to have like a more consistent amount of staff with less seasonal positions, it just made sense to put something back in that summer slot between those two periods. So for our crew, it made sense. Financially made sense.
And for the membership.
And for the membership, yeah.
You know, our spring CSA runs between April and the very tail end of June. And there's a significant overlap between that spring CSA and when other growers start their summer CSA. So we were kind of leaving our members in a lurch, and you know, they were either having to be absolutely overwhelmed by 2 farms produce, or kind of, you know, pencil it all together by going down to the farmer's market, even though they really wanted to be a CSA member with somebody. So, and then the same was true on the backside, you know, with people's summer CSAs ending and our winter CSA taking a little bit of time to start up again. There's just some bumps for members that we want to kind of solve, you know, in terms of their problems and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a hard conundrum. I mean, you want to, you know, once you sort of start farming year round, it's hard to give it up, right? There's a lot of reasons to do it year round, as you mentioned. But wouldn't it be great if there is a way that you could just grow winter, right? You know, and take summers off. I mean, isn't that the dream? And I haven't really seen many farms that have been able to really do that super successfully. I think it's hard both economically and then also, like you said, with customers, the demand, they want to keep buying from the same farm year round. You know, employees, I mean, there's all these different things that make it really challenging. But it's so great to see how you've been able to like play around with those scenarios and figure it out for yourselves, because you're not going to know if it's going to work well unless you try it, right? Well, before we get too much more into your farm details, I want to hear more about your background. Are you born and raised in Montana? Did you grow up somewhere else? How did you get into farming? All those questions. So why don't you start, Max?
Okay. I'm one of the few people that's still left in Montana that actually grew up here. I like to joke. No, it seems like it sometimes. But I did grow up in Missoula, just a little bit north of where we farm right now. And it was just an astonishing place to grow up, with access to this river that runs right through the center of town and that everybody recreates on in the summertime. Like, it doesn't matter, your economic, socioeconomic level. Like, you get out there and you get, cooled down, from the hot summer heat. And, that was a big part of my life growing up. Just always being able to stroll down to the river. And now I'm also equally reliant on water, being in this arid climate that you mentioned earlier. But my early life was kind of focused on trying to limit my carbon footprint and that sort of thing. And that's really what got me into farming. Just trying to be a lot more connected to where just the basics of life, and to be have some semblance of control over them, and be constantly trying to improve upon the last year and that sort of thing. But I started out at the University of Montana studying environmental studies and getting a sense for, different issues that are confronting our civilization, and quickly learned that I wanted to jump out into the fields after spending a little bit of time interning on a farm. And so I transferred actually to Montana State University, which is the ag school. And they had just started a new program called the Sustainable Foods and Bioenergy Systems program, and which combines agroecology and nutritional sciences, and also crop production. So more of like studying of soil sciences and that sort of thing. And I was really, really taken by that degree program. I thought it really prepared me for what we do now. And not all of it was just hard sciences. Some of it was like a holistic management course that I took as well, that I tap into a lot nowadays.
I grew up in northern New York, in the Adirondacks. When I was going to college in Boston, I was on the pre-med bio track and started to get pretty disenchanted with that. Got accidentally bumped into an agroecology class, which was the first course they had in agroecology at the university I went to, and loved that. Asked my professor, okay, so if I wanted to try this, what would one do? She directed me toward ATRA. So I found Paul and Sandy's farm, Pleasant Valley. So I worked there for just a summer, went back, graduated, and then looked on ATRA again, found this farm that's about an hour and a half north of us, in Arlee, Montana, and picked them specifically because they were a bit younger. They were a bit larger than Ponsandy's farm, and then they were focused more on like CSA and wholesale. So I worked there, and when I got there, after having worked for Ponsandy, I was like, oh, who's doing winter growing around here? And they were like, what is winter growing? And I was like, oh, okay. And they were like, do you want to grow in one of our high tunnels with this other gal that worked there as well? So we grew in one of their tunnels and then just did the winter market through Christmas with that. And while we were doing that, I met Max, and he had just found this land with our landlords. And so joined up with him, and I was like, well, if I'm going to join you, then we're going to do winter growing. So that's how we started the first year we were doing it together. We did 30 CSA members for 10 weeks, I think, for winter CSA.
So wait, how did you guys meet? I always have to ask that question.
So modern. We met on Tinder.
There no farm version, just straight up Tinder. No weed speed dating or anything like that.
No, that might have gone better initially, because I reached out to her on Tinder, and I think I made a wisecrack about your profile picture or something, or your bio.
Yeah, he was like, "So you want to be a farmer?" And I was like, "Okay."
This asshole.
Yeah. It worked out.
Well, that's great. So Max, you had just found land. Is it lease land? It was a combination. Okay. Lease land. And then you were like, "Hey, I've got all this land. You want to do this with me?"
We kind of had like an overlap year where I was still working at that farm up north of us, and he was just starting here. And so I had time to like vet the situation about whether I wanted to join or not, or not. So,
no, that's great. I love that. And how was it then farming together? Because obviously, isn't that the ultimate test of a relationship? Like, how well do you farm together?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, has its challenges, but we live in a tiny house as well. We live in a shipping container that our landlord built. And so there's no escaping, like you have to communicate. There's no getting away from it. So I think that's a strong suit that we have in our relationship, which we just are good communicators with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I have nothing more to add on that. That's very true. It's Katie's mom I guess I do have one thing to add. Katie's mom sort of warned me that this wasn't going to work out. The intensity of farming together and what she knew of Katie's personality and stuff. And I was kind of I was taken back by that and a little bit worried. And I've still been kind of astonished by it, because it's always been really easy to farm with Katie.
Sounds like a protective mom, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I love how, Katie, you mentioned earlier that you wanted to do some sort of winter farming, from the get-go, right? It sounds like that was a priority. And Max, how receptive were you to that, or how much did you know about it? How did that kind of influence you?
Oh, well, I started farming a couple years before Katie on my own, and really struggled, trying to transfer the knowledge of other farms that I'd worked on and the education and stuff. And it was really a hard go. I mean, had a lot of CSA member supporters, that were with me through thick and thin. But our area is just dotted with other produce farmers. It's a unique part of Montana in that sense. And so there's just a lot of competition, and at least early on, like trying to get started, it was really hard. And so when Katie joined the farm that I started, there was an understanding that we were on equal footing, that we all had a say in the different enterprises, and I think out of the challenges that I'd experienced before, and just the understanding that to make this all work, we all needed to kind of shape the business and the farm and the landscape together. That was very guiding for me. I like the idea of trying to feed people more. It really fit the holistic goal that I'd formed initially. And it was really fun to start out, that first year. I mean, it was a very mild, like November and December even. We were harvesting under row covers because we didn't have the tunnel infrastructure, and just pushing plants as far as they could go. Like there were damages to the leaves that on the outer parts of the plants that we were harvesting through, and finding the good food that was left, and trying to harvest as much of it in the narrow window of time that we had, without high tunnels. So, and it was very stimulating. It was, I feel like I learned the most about agriculture that fall and that winter. And so, it was pretty easy to say, let's keep working on this and learning together.
Yeah, no, I think it's so great when you have that opportunity to really have the bare bones approach to just see like, how far can you push plants, right? Because, hey, why do we need all this extra infrastructure if we don't really need it sometimes? And, if you're going to be adding heat, how much heat do you really have to add? All those things you don't know, right? So it's great that you got an opportunity to see like how much food could you still get with like minimum, infrastructure and protection. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear, could you describe a little bit more about what your farm looks like now, infrastructure, acreage, just give a little more lay of the land.
So the property we're on is 15 acres. We have about an acre in high tunnels at this point. We have a couple. Usually we limit it to 4 of the caterpillar tunnels. We're trying to move. We have moved a little bit away from those. We had up to 10 at one point, and that was far too many in my opinion. We also have 2 stationary caterpillar sized tunnels. And then we do usually 1 or 2 like low tunnels in the field as well. We have a seedling greenhouse as well down here. We have a shipping container that's insulated, that's currently for dry storage, but will eventually be for cold storage. We have I'll call it a unique building that we call the barn. It's a high tunnel structure over top of a pad that has a 20 by 60 structure that is all made of cooler panels that we got in Detroit one time with a Penske truck. That is split up into 3 bays. And so it's 20 by 20, 20 by 20, and 20 by 20. The first one that you go into is our wash station. The second one's a cooler, and the back one is a cooler.
So the cooler panels are, it's built like a house inside with those, correct?
Yeah, so there's like a substructure, and it's white plastic on the outside.
Okay.
It was our cheap way to get something up, because after the first year doing winter growing together and washing in like an 8 by 8 little building thing that was our wash station with a cooler trailer, I was like, I will never do this again. We have to figure something else out. So that was the cheap route that we still use. It works pretty well. Yeah.
And how do you heat it? How do you heat the pack space?
So we put tubing into the slab to eventually have in-floor heat, which we just installed this past year. Prior to that, it's so well insulated, like the pad as well as the structure, that we would just, it stays at like 45 on its own pretty well. And so we would just use space heaters in the winter.
And you'd think that greenhouse on the top of it would really alter the temperature inside those cooler panels. I mean, they'd let in heat, but like Katie said, it's white plastic, so it does reflect a little bit of sunlight energy. And then, oddly enough, I mean, it's over 100 in there in the summer days, but inside the substructure, these panels that are like R value of 33 or so, they just keep it just absolutely cool. It's remarkable.
And is there any outdoor lighting that comes in, or is it all you're just in a little hovel.
You're in the hovel.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I mean, I guess it sounds cozy. And probably, like you said, beats the 8x8 little shack that you were trying to wash greens in before, right? So that's great. Is this kind of the permanent solution for what you want to do, or is this kind of a step to getting to something bigger?
Yeah, we're in the middle of planning a new building that's a 40x40, dry storage, some washing and packing, as well. And then like bathroom and employee break area and some pallet racking and stuff like that. So we still will use this building, but this will help immensely.
And this is on leased land, you were saying? Is that still the case? And how are you planning that out with this infrastructure?
It's a really unique situation, and it's leased to own. So we felt comfortable putting structures on it.
Yeah, our landlords are a different breed, that's for sure. They're old family friends of mine, and when our lease ended at a previous land, before we met, right? Yeah, this is in 2015. These folks, our landlords, took us on a wandering, took me on a wandering tour to try to find the next plot of soil. So, there aren't too many CSA members and family friends that would do that, and they're just a different type, and ultimately incredibly trustworthy. And love working with them. I mean, like Katie said, Tim put in the time to design this shipping container and remodel it for us for a living space, and poured money into that as well. It's just a different kind of situation.
Yeah, no, it's great when you have a community like that really wants to support, there's small business enterprises. So that's great. That's amazing. What's the soil like? I mean, did you luck out on that part too, or?
We did.
Okay, good.
There's no rocks.
Wow.
And it was rough for starting, but it's proven to be we've kind of found a formula for improving the soil. So it's pretty quickly improved. Within 2 years, I would say it's improved.
It's been in crops since the 50s too, which is remarkable. I mean, that it hasn't languished, but it was a hayfield before we started farming, and before that, sugar beets, corn, potatoes, everything in the Bitter Valley that people used to grow, I guess. And the soil type is really silty, so it doesn't hold a ton of water, and it also it's somewhere in between clay and sand, so it holds enough moisture and holds enough nutrients. And it's been remarkable with our style of farming is to incorporate a ton of leaves that we source from the municipality just down the road, and mix that in, spade it into the soil, spread it out and spade it into the soil along with fertilizer and that sort of thing. And we've been, I would say that the organic matter has been about the same as we started, even though we till all the time. So it's really, I don't know. It's that recipe, that formula of using the leaves and a lot of fertilizer and cover cropping. Right. Exactly. Great point. Yeah. Has led to a transformation of the friability of the soil, and you can just feel the difference, and we used to till in the greenhouses about 3 times a year in order to prepare just a constant wave of crops for the spring CSA, summer farmers markets, summer CSA, winter CSA, and that sort of thing. And we didn't have a whole lot of time to rest that soil at all or put it into cover crops. And but this formula seemed to work just fine. It's been wild. I mean, I think part of it is the spading and not tilling with a rototiller. We don't really chop up the soil in such a way that it turns to kind of a paste or something like that. There's still a lot of structure there before we plant, and that has its downsides, I think, a lot of times, because it's harder to work into soil. It's not a dust, basically, but we consider that trade-off, and using a spader and keeping the soil structure it works from year to year. So,
hey, podcast listeners, we're going to pause for a moment to hear from one of our show sponsors. This episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by BCS America. BCS two-wheel tractors are designed and built in Italy, where small-scale farming has been a way of life for generations. Discover the beauty of BCS on your farm with PTO-driven implements for soil working, shredding cover crops, spreading compost, mowing under fences, clearing snow, and more. All powered by a single gear-driven machine that's tailored to the size and scale of your operation. Tractors and attachments are on sale now. Find sale pricing and your nearest dealer at bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com.
Hey, you all, Farmer Jesse here. So our work has always been about keeping farming information as free and open to the public as we possibly can, and that won't change. One way in which we make that possible, though, is through advertising on podcasts like this, on our YouTube channel, on our forum, and so on. So if you are a small farm-related company selling seeds or tools or something growers could use, or if you're an organization putting on some conference or offering a grant or looking for farmer contributors or something else farm-related that I'm not thinking of, get in touch with us at farmermichelle@notillgrowers.com. That's farmermichelle@notillgrowers.com. Supporting us helps to grow this work and grow farmers. So we all thank you. Again, that email is farmermichelle@notillgrowers.com, or you can find our contact information at notillgrowers.com. All right. Thanks, you all. Enjoy the show.
In some of the pre-show info that I asked from you, you sent me this pretty impressive spreadsheet with a sort of tunnel crop plan that you do, but it also included incorporating cover cropping within that too. And I'm curious sort of how that's been working. I'm assuming none of these tunnels are movable, so you have the same space that you're dealing with all the time. How are you able to make sure that you have enough production, and how do you cycle in those cover crops in the tunnels?
That's been incorporating the cover crops has been a bit of a learning curve. Yeah, we did have, I would say we were quite successful this year during sorghum, Sudan grass, and that got crazy tall.
I think part of the secret too is to create a high tunnel with end walls that allow you to bring in mechanical equipment and really change up whatever's planted in there needs to be mowed really easily. If we were operating an acre's worth of tunnels with a BCS flail mower but I think within 2 or so days, like, we can mow and prepare land for the next crop. And let's see, I think all the equipment has really helped too, like having a really great flail mower that, chops everything up and allows us to, incorporate that material right away and get it being digested, leads to quicker turnaround times for the next planting.
Yeah. So you have 4 tractors and obviously lots of implements, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is a huge help. I think you have a water wheel transplanter, I think I saw on one of your videos, right? So, and you're doing definitely more of like a row crop style out in the fields too, right?
That's right. Yeah. And, another inspiration for us has been looking at what Queen's Greens does. I think you had them on, yes. Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're so inspiring. Just the execution of cover crops and just how well they have the different plantings dialed in. I mean, the different successions. To have a wave of wholesale greens throughout the winter is remarkable. I mean, they do grow in Massachusetts, so they have a leg up on us there. But it's been fun to see just how much cover cropping you can do, in the tunnels.
Yeah, no, I loved that conversation with Danya, and just like that cedar, on the back of the tractor. I mean, just everything was just so precise, and like you're like, there's something to be said for mechanization. Yeah, but what about your harvesting? Are you all those root crops you have help with that, or is there a combo of, or at least in the winter, you're probably doing mostly hand harvesting, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, we hand harvest the greens, all of our greens all the time. We dabbled with using the quick cut, but we just didn't really like it, and we just found if we tweaked certain things about how we were cropping and our successions and stuff, we could get away with the hand harvesting. And then we just found, like, with our climate in the winter time, that's really the only way we can do it is the hand harvesting.
Yeah, there is damage in a lot of the crops and that we grow in the winter time, and I mean, we'd have to sort it out, I think, by hand in the wash station anyways, even if we did the quick cut. But this way, like, we can store greens a little bit longer if they're cut in a higher quality. And the hand harvesting and the winter growing has led us to kind of change the density rate in the tunnels as well. Like, you can get away with a lot of rows of salad mix in the summertime, but it's just not so. Even for something that's really durable like spinach, like I really space out the rows, and it looks really sparse, for the first few weeks when they're starting to germinate and take off, and I always feel like, oh, did I mess it up this time? Should I reseed? But then, months later, I'm very thankful with what the rate actually ends up looking like in the end. So.
And are you noticing that the wider spacing is just helping with the plant health because it has to stay in the ground for a longer period of time?
Yeah, exactly. And we've shifted a lot of varieties of, say, spinach to the ones that mature over a longer window of time. Rachel of Johnny's Seeds, like, really helped us find those later maturing varieties, and she was I think she was shell shocked that we were requesting for that advice, because she usually tries to select for the quickest growing spinaches for people that are growing greenhouse peppers and tomatoes and stuff like that, and need to do a quick turnaround. Get something actively growing before the sun starts to wane, and for us, we don't have that stress of the fruiting crop, pushing at our heels and telling us to get in the spinach crop as quick as we can. We more so dial in the amount that we need harvested for different successional windows. And our falls are very, very different from year to year in terms of how much sunlight we're getting and how hot it is, in September and October. And so we've sort of shifted to planting a lot of different successions, a lot of varieties, just to kind of do a shotgun approach and see what really finishes off well, and to have balance between the size of those successions rather than trying to kind of hedge our bets with one over the other. So the slower varieties allow the seasons to kind of dictate things a little bit better for us. And the worst thing that we can see is, like, a really quick growing spinach that gets too much foliage, is more susceptible to harder frosts, even mild frosts in the 20s, and so we like to keep things as small for as long as we can, and that way we don't have to heat the tunnels. Basically, we can let the plants live through it, and harden up. I think that's the philosophy. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then does that spinach go bonkers and, like, mid-February when the light comes back and things start heating up? It's usually what I've seen. So does it just, like, take off and then you have, like, these, dinner plate size spinach leaves that you are getting?
Yeah.
So how many members for your winter CSA do you have, or how has that grown?
So in the first year we did in 2017, we had about 30. And so now we're up to 350 shares per week is what we do.
Wow.
It's a $35 share. And so we have members that are every week, so a full share, and then a half share is every other week. So overall, that ends up being 350 shares delivered each week with how we offset the half shares. So,
and I saw that that runs October through beginning of March. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, we've like slowly been extending it. The first year we did like mid-October through Christmas. So now we're up to 20 weeks. So we do the first week in October through the first week in March. We take the week off of Christmas. And then when we decided to extend it for this season, we built in a 2-week break in February, which we're about to take, so that we could give our members a little bit of a break to like get through some of the storage crops that we give. And we also do like a pretty extensive annual review with our crew. And so that takes quite a bit of time. And so that just allows time for that as well.
And what is your crew size? How many year-round employees do you have?
It's ended up being, what are we at? 7? 7 full-time year-round. So like full-time for pretty much everybody here is 4 days a week, is what we do. Yeah.
Are they local to the area? Do you have, seasonal people that come from elsewhere to work there? I mean, what's sort of the makeup of your employees?
A small chunk lives in our more like rural area down here. And then most of our employees end up driving from Missoula, which is like 45 minutes away.
And have you been able to retain employees for a number of years? Is that worked out for you? I mean, it's always the goal if you can keep people, not have to keep training new people all the time.
Yeah, that's something we've definitely been working really hard at. So this crew that we have currently is excellent. They almost all of them except for one who joined us mid-season signed a 1-year contract, just like a loose contract, not binding or anything, last March. So they're about to end that. And then we talked to all of them a couple weeks ago and they all want to come back for another year. So I think partly that has to do with like involving them in the annual review, which we found to be super important. Some other like management changes we made, and then we pay everybody $20 an hour. So I hope that we have kind of found the tipping point of like paying people enough so they want to come back, but not like totally breaking the bank with doing that. So.
Yeah, no, that is a hard calculus. I'll say it's a constant, struggle to figure out how to pay a living wage, keep really good employees, but also be able to meet your costs, of course. So, and hopefully pay yourself and, save for retirement and everything else, right?
There's all that to consider. It's a huge equation, but I think at this point, we just want to shout from the rooftops that, this is the way, or the best way that we've found so far is to not push people too hard during the middle of the season, when things get heavier and, fatigue sets in, during the harvest bulking season, just to keep the schedule at 4 days a week and to hire enough people that all the farm work can get done. But I think we took a page from Dan Wiesbaugh's book in that, to send out a signal to everybody that works on the farm at that time of year that no, things are not going to get harder. Things are going to actually get easier as more people enter the crew and relieve everybody's burdens. And, it's a more of a jovial time anyways, like with a larger crew at that period. And then, this year, we are not raising the wages because Katie and I are trying to do everything that you mentioned, like trying to be more forward thinking with the financing of this new building and potential loan payments and that sort of thing, and compensating ourselves for our time as well. So we've really found the line, and we had a meeting with everybody to bring that up. to negotiate the next contract, basically, and to explain why, things were going to stay about the same, and to see what people felt about that, and not only did people say that they were interested in rejoining the farm at that point through those meetings, but a lot of people expressed that they thought that was the right move, that we needed to pay ourselves more. So, it's not a worker cooperative, in the way that I envisioned, us moving towards, over time, or a worker owned business or anything like that. We just haven't had the time or and the models really to show us, where to go with that. But it's been kind of an on the fly. Let's do the best we can, and the writing seems to be on the wall that this is working, and I definitely want to put a good word in for that. If people are considering making the investment in their crew so they don't have to rehire, retrain, and find themselves working with people that feel like they're being exploited or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so great too if you can think about, other alternative benefits, for employees. That there's so many different things that you can offer. I mean, whether that's a fund to go towards health and wellness, or there's all these other things that maybe a normal employer wouldn't even be able to do. But if you can be creative and offer these other benefits that are real needs, then hopefully everyone wins.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I am curious about you have shared that you follow a certain philosophy for your farming. Can you describe what that is and where that came from?
Yeah, so we generally follow like two major things. So that would be Kaizen. So that's like the theory of the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement, and that we learned of through the Lean Farm book. So that's how we like to look at everything on the farm, is how can we continuously improve. And then also like another overarching thing would be holistic management, which Max brought to the farm. And so, yeah, the annual review is like the biggest example of that we do, which we definitely took a page from Taylor's Footprint Farms book with that, doing that. And so, yeah, we go really in depth and take a long time to go through that process, but it has proved to be, let's see, I think this is the fourth year that we did it, that we're doing it. And it's just a time to spend on going deep into each topic of each area of the farm. And the results speak for themselves, I guess, in how that's worked.
But do you want to go into it? Because we just had our first meeting for the annual review today, and we covered 3 topics. Would you, maybe you could even talk about today's?
I'm also curious to learn, like, what are the things that the feedback you get that comes completely out of left field? So, like, there any shocking things that you hear that you're like, I had no idea? Or is it generally information that you kind of expect?
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Nothing too shocking, I would say. It's just a nice, like, concrete time where people know they can give feedback.
And that'll be responded to.
Yeah, and that'll be responded to. Yeah, it's really nice looking back at the previous year's notes when we go through all this and be like, oh, look at all the things that we did achieve. So we generally just have all the different topics laid out. We split them up into topics that just Max and I go over together, and then topics that we go over together with the crew. And so we just do achievements and disappointments for each of the topics. And then we'll go through and look at the disappointments and see what we want to start doing based on that. And then additionally, like, wrapped into that process, or like time that we spend, we do like listen to and or read like a teamwork book together, and talk about it. And then we do some like fun activities, I guess, that are like team building and communication based, that are like personality tests and stuff like that.
Got to have some fun in there too, right?
Oh yeah. It's we started it out too in sort of almost a religious manner this afternoon with the reading of the holistic goal. It sounds a little woo woo, but basically it was, there's a component of a holistic goal that involves quality of life, and that's it's our attempt as farmers to shed light on what that could look like, and we can always tweak that quality of life and stuff. But I think of that as a really important thing to bring up at the beginning of the meeting, because my theory is that it allows people to cite that specifically. This is the language of the farm owner, the farm owner. And if I can use that language to tap into it, and it'll arouse something in that farm owner. If I want to change something on this farm, and I use that, I'm repeating myself here, but basically, it was at least our way of like opening up the discussion and saying, like, these are the goals, here's the topic that we're covering. Bring up anything that's on your mind, and if it reflects, if it needs to change in order to bring this farm more in line with its goals, like, let's do it. And I think it's working pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very collaborative approach, and of course, that may bring up potentially, potential conflict, right? But conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's an opportunity for a conversation and hopefully a way to find a solution. So it requires more work, and we often shy away from more work, right? But hopefully in the end, you have a better situation.
That's right. Yeah. And what meeting is we're trying to make the meetings more like movies, basically, schedule in the conflict, because that's the most interesting part of a movie, isn't, a plot line that has a jagged edge to it and that needs to be solved and stuff. And I think that's the structure of our meeting, basically, is to create conflict, to say, like, this, we have a future resource base in the holistic goal that we want to work towards. That's not where we're at right now. And to create that tension, basically, and be very deliberative about it so that people know, like, let's make this meeting interesting. And there's a greater goal that we need to achieve.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, again, I think so many people are conflict averse, and, that's often why trying to approach it from that perspective is challenging. So it's great that you're willing to dive in. So, well, good. Well, I think we're at the point of our lightning round, which of course are lots of good, fun questions. Are you guys ready for those? Well, we can, usually I love hearing both of your responses to the questions. So if you want to, go one after another, or if you want to, avoid a particular question and pass, you can do that too. So we'll start off easy, start off slow, and then they get, maybe a little harder. But number one is your favorite crop to grow, cook, or eat.
Yeah, I put spinach for both of us, for growing. It's just, it's never endingly complex. Just with the different varieties that come in and out of the seed companies, and with the different successions we have, and that we grow it almost year round. So that's a fun one. And then cook and eat. I put tropea, onions, and broccoli rabe are my favorite.
Nice. Those are newer ones, I think. What about you, Max?
Oh, I love just working with spinach. I really do.
For all three.
I've got to, yeah.
You're like Popeye.
It's my spirit plant.
No, I mean, it is definitely the workhorse of the winter grower for sure. So I can agree with you on that one. And it turns into a different vegetable in the winter too. I mean, it's like sweet and it has texture and it's, it has such good flavor. So I agree with you there. What is the hardest part of farming?
Yeah, I put employee management. There's always something to learn with that. Yeah. And then just another note we had is like throughout the winter, like there's a moving target sort of like how the crops are doing in the tunnels. And so that can sometimes, our quality standards are always high, but there's a window within that they range within. And so just like sort of dealing with that sort of pendulum throughout.
Yeah, no, it's never an even keel. It's always changing. It's a moving target. And Max, what about you?
I think, in keeping with that idea of a moving target, like just having the idea of how a crop should go, maybe how, you were enamored by how it went a previous year, and then to experience something else, something dramatically different is always kind of a tricky thing to wrap your head around, and probably the hardest part for me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What is your favorite tool?
For me, it's the Flame Weeder and Google Sheets.
What kind of flame weeder do you use?
Oh, we used the Neversink one. Yeah.
And Google Sheets was your second. Is that what you said? You like a good spreadsheet, huh?
Yeah.
What about you, Max?
I love the undercutter. When I hear of another farm that grows roots and they don't use an undercutter and they dig by hand, it blows me away because it's such a time-saving tool and it's very easy to use.
No, that's good. And it's satisfying. It's like to see the soil kind of lift up. It's very satisfying. What's your favorite? I don't often get this one on my list. Favorite music you listen to while farming? You have great music choices, just so you know, on your social media. I'm not surprised that you wanted that question.
Well, thanks for saying that. Probably something to do with Santa Gold is some great music to listen to when you're farming. Upbeat, spirited.
Do you listen to it, in earbuds, or do you broadcast it?
Definitely broadcast playlists all the time. Yeah, and the rest of the crew, I think, is really taken to listen to podcasts, kind of mellow podcasts and audio stories and stuff. So everybody has their own thing out here on the farm, but we all listen to something, that's for sure.
And Katie, do you have anything to add to the favorite music part?
I won't add to that.
Or favorite podcast or something else? What else do you like to listen to? Books on tape?
Books on tape are hard. I always have to rewind it 100 times. Podcasts.
I always listen to yours when it comes out.
Yours and the UVM Ag Extension, Andy Chamberlain's. Definitely listen to those when they come out.
I thought you were going to say like something totally unrelated to farming. That's why I was fishing for that, because I was like, you're going to have some. I mean, what you said, you were on a track for med school, so maybe you're going to have some like nerdy, medical podcast or something.
Oh yeah, I do that. I don't know. I dabble in the Huberman Lab one. I guess it would be medically related. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite way to relax or self-care activity, or how do you take care of your body, heart, and mind as a farmer?
So this is threefold, I guess. So for me, it's skiing. For Max, it's hockey. And then together it's going to the river.
So skiing along the river while he skates on it? Well, that's good. So river can be all seasons, whether it's swimming or maybe if it's frozen, right?
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah.
And what type of skiing do you like to do, Katie?
I like any skiing. I grew up downhill racing, so I prefer that. But we've recently got into skate skiing, and there's really not lakes here, so I do miss water skiing. But yeah, any skiing at all.
Yeah, no, I love skate skiing, and if you're a little probably unknown fact for listeners, but I used to compete in biathlon. So, which, just if people don't know, is skate skiing and shooting. So with a .22 rifle. But I learned it in Colorado. So that's why I think of the West, and I think of the access to doing it is greater back there. So, but anyway, huh?
You giving it up?
Well, I mean, right now I'm in Portland, Maine, so I can't really. I have my rifle in my basement, but I was hoping maybe one of my kids would want to get into it, but no.
Shucks.
Yeah, shucks. Okay, what is your favorite smell and your least favorite smell on the farm?
Oh, least favorite, definitely rotting brassicas. And then my favorite is walking into the cooler in like late spring after everything's like packed for market or CSA, and the smell of that.
And what about you, Matt?
For me, it's got to be like walking into a greenhouse, and you've worked with these plants for a few months, and you smell death. Maybe it's an early frost that actually hit inside, and just it's not even really about the smell, but it's like just the knowledge of just how devastating that is, to your mind. And probably in terms of great smells on the farm, it would be like blooming choke cherries for us is really tremendous, and we have this kind of shelter belt wall of them on one side of the farm, and so you can just maybe not drive every time and just walk through them, just to get a sense of that when they're really on.
I'm curious about your first answer to the smell of death of plants. Is it more of like combined with the like terror of knowing that an entire crop has just been lost? Or is it
Exactly.
just, okay. Because obviously plants dying is just part of, a farm and nature and life, but it's more combined with like, shit, things just overheated or, and to the point of actually dying unnecessarily.
Yeah. You got it.
Luckily, we have not experienced in a long time, but it is striking.
I don't know. I smelled it the other day when we were
It
walking
did
through.
smell a little bit like that after it was -36.
Yeah, so that was a different smell.
Things weren't bad, but there was some leaf death, I would say.
Well, it's fine because I know that smell and it is very unique. So it's cool that that is a very first time I've heard that answer. So I like that one.
All right.
Okay. How do you turn off farming, or do you?
I only turn off farming when Katie's made it clear that it's time. I really use her as a bellwether, for that, and it really helps me because I struggle with that one.
Yeah, I mean the easiest way for me is getting off the farm. But yeah, setting boundaries or just telling Max like we're not talking about that anymore tonight. Yeah.
That helps.
What's one piece of advice you wish you had starting out, or something you wish you had done differently?
How to leverage your finances as like, I guess, maybe not a piece of advice, but just something that I wish I had more knowledge about going into it, or some more guidance with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer as well. learning the business side of things, and tapping into other business owners for their takeaways has been something that I would tell other people is like kind of just ask other people in your field or outside of your field who own businesses how they manage their finances and stuff, and you'll be surprised with what you hear. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
What is your learning edge? Where do you feel where do you feel like your abilities or understanding as a farmer could grow?
It was hard to pick one. I put three: employee management, bookkeeping, and soil chemistry. I just feel like there's always, or soil science, I'll say. I feel like there's always something to learn on all three of those spheres.
I think winter growing is my learning edge. There's always the negative 36 that you've never experienced before, and followed by subsequent weather patterns that play into how the plants respond and how they do, and brainstorming how you might cope with that next time, or the lessons are so dramatic because they usually lead to plant death from like we were talking about, plants that you've spent time with for a long time, a long while and stuff. And I don't know, maybe I'm speaking personally. I have trouble learning and remembering exactly what experiences I had and doing better, and it takes something dramatic for me to really remember it years down the line. And so I appreciate that part of winter farming, and because the lessons are so clear. You messed up in this way, and this is what happened, and it's also a really fun part about winter growing year after year, because you get to tell those stories, and people are really open to learning about how plants do in certain conditions and stuff, and they're always surprised. You can see the light in their eye as you start talking about something, and it's not a topic that most people in the country think about, so it's very novel. And even with employees that you're working with for the first time, like, they're very interested in as well. So it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things I noticed about myself, especially with winter growing, is there was this, because of the sense of vulnerability with the crops, which was far more the case than in the summer. It was almost like more of my parenting instincts came out, like this protective, drive was far more prevalent in the winter than in the summer. So maybe you're experiencing that sort of like protectiveness, like you don't want these things to die. Yeah. And it drives you to figure out, like, how do I make this work? Because these are these little living things you don't want to, die unnecessarily. So until they're in your belly. How do you relate to that which is out of your control?
I think our approach is generally just, we plan for what we can and we take the rest in stride. And I think also, like, our philosophy of Kaizen, just relying on that, we'll improve as many areas as we can, as quickly as we can, and as it makes sense. And that's, just keep chipping away at that.
Yeah, I can agree more.
Yeah, I think as farmers, control is such a hard thing to let go of. So it's such a hard question. And finally, how will you grow old, or how are you growing old farming?
Our ideal plan has always been to partner with a younger farmer who'd like to farm on this land, or take over the business. That's the ideal. So that's what we hope for.
Yeah, and it involves, like, keeping an eye out for people like that right now, and noticing the traits and for me, it's like noticing the traits of Katie and what it's taken to build this farm, and to try to respond to somebody with those similar traits and stuff. And we have a long time before we stop farming, but we've got to begin planning now in terms of that goal, and chipping away at it, in ways like trying to make the farm more well-rounded financially, trying to set up more infrastructure, and to think about how it would be used in the future. And to not pigeonhole anybody into exactly what we're doing out here, to try to plan in versatility for other folks. And there's nothing harder than seeing somebody stop farming and then just having your heart sink about like, oh shit, what happens with the land now? Like whether it's somebody that passes, suddenly. We want to do everything we can to get this farm into a spot where it can be taken over, and the life's work can continue, and that all of what we're passionate about trying to improve soils and that sort of thing, like it's not all bookended with our lives, and that's the hardest thought for me, honestly. So we're working on it right now. We're really trying to find the next people.
That's great. I mean, wonderful that you are being so intentional about it, relatively young, so to speak, right? So, because oftentimes people wait until the very end. So good on you for doing that hard work now, or trying to plan for it now.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you so very much for your time. And it's been great having you and getting to know you a little bit through our conversation. And I really enjoyed following you guys on social media. So there's an element of fun that I can always feel when I see your posts. And, I think that's so important to exude that energy out into the world. So I appreciate both of you for doing that.
Well, thanks for saying that. More to come.
Good.
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate it, and for all the work that you do and put out. So thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Today's show was produced by me, Clara Coleman, with support from No Till Growers. Special thank you to Willie Breeding for the theme music. Thank you to the patrons at patreon.com/no-till-growers for helping to make this show possible. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.